This is why you need to lock your doors tonight. This is why the darkness beckons. Welcome, brave souls, to the Nightmare Roadshow. Join us as we peel back the veil between reality and the abyss. Each episode, we explore chilling tales and haunted places that make your very spine tingle. Will you dare to listen, or will you turn away, leaving the shadows unexplored? Whisper, the choice is yours.
Oh,
The worst,
I,
anxiety when I hit the record
you
button.
think that's what it is? You think it's anxiety?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think so.
stage fright.
I have stage fright like an idiot. Anyways, welcome guys to another episode of Nightmare Road. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Decon, here with a very, very mysterious
SOS, and here with the CIA spy.
Dirty Birdie.
There we go.
All right, and we have a really interesting episode today. Why don't you guys tell us what the episode is about?
The history of tarot cards.
Oh, that'll.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, but it involves quite a lot of research.
Yeah, the thing with it is that they can't really like pinpoint the beginning or where it started because of, some people believe that it originated in Egypt with these specialized like leather, type of material where they had like certain emblems on them. Other people believe that it arrived in Italy as a card game that people just played, and then the gypsies came in and started reading fortunes with it. Then other people believe that it was like a game for the wealthy, like the wealthy people, they would just get together, and it was kind of like the way that you play cards now, but then eventually they were saying like, oh, whenever this blah 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 happens, and then they started adding more and more characters to the deck, and then they found like the magical properties of it. So the history of it is kind of hard to pinpoint because nobody really has like a definitive, because how can you tell? A lot of people also believe that it came from the East, that as soon as the Crusades came back from their adventures or their campaigns, that they brought with them tarot, like what would look like tarot cards, and then and then they were kind of explaining what it was, like what the people in the Far East used them for, and then from there, like people believe that that's how they began to like kind of develop tarot from what we know now as tarot. So the history is kind of, I don't even know what to call it. It's just like so spotty, but in the end, who cares? I mean, it's cool.
Yeah, it's what I found out is it started off as a game like Bridge.
Yes.
And then people were like, you know what? This needs more cards, more elaborate cards. And Ken, my French is not that good, but these new decks are called Parte di Trifani, which means triumph cards, or in short, trump cards.
That's right. These are my cards. I made these cards. That's what they said. They said, hey, you got the best cards. I walked in here and I said, wow, look at the cards. They're great. What?
Everybody knows it.
Oh, God.
Cards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and God, it's been years since I played Bridge, so I don't even know. But when do you think that people started using them for the more mystical side instead of just entertainment?
So even that, we have a lot of different dates. The one that a lot of people talk about happened in places like Sicily or Italy, and it was around the 1500s, and some people believe that it might have been decades before that. So again, we fall back into you can't really pinpoint what dates it actually began, like officially began. But when people start, man, here's what's crazy is I like the history aspect of it. I mean, so all right, so Napoleon had this great general, Jacques, what was his name? Jacques. Man, I wish I could have. Anyways, the name escapes me. So he heard that there was like this very famous like tarot reader in town, and he wanted to he was kind of ashamed of like wanting to find out, about the future and all that kind of stuff, because it was frowned upon, especially for somebody of his status. So he said, I'm gonna disguise myself as a merchant, and I'm just gonna test out this this witch here, and I'm gonna say that I'm trying to make some important investments. And when I make these important and I'm gonna kind of see what she says. So he arrives at this little house after he found out where it was, and he's like, "Hello, I'm a merchant." So, you know, with tarot, it's so interesting because a lot of people have different. There's no real wrong technique for tarot. Some people believe that the person that wants the reading should shuffle the deck, or only the person that's reading should shuffle the deck. Just so there's so many different things. But in this case, she had him shuffle the deck. So he shuffles the deck, and she wanted to shuffle this deck so that they get to know each other, I guess. So she begins to like flip the cards, and she flips. I believe it was the Nine of Swords. And then she was like, I don't really recall like which cards were brought up, but technically she brought out these cards, right? Boom, this spread, and she says, "Well, you're not a merchant. You're in the military and of high ranking. You're under a person that will one day become emperor, and one day you will become king." So he was like, "All right, whatever." And he wrote all this, by the way, in his diary. He wrote it before the campaign. So this guy was a general to Napoleon. Within a year, Napoleon became emperor of France. And then after Napoleon's campaign, like after he did all these things and he was exiled, this guy, went to, I believe, Switzerland. And he had such a great experience and such great in politics that you're like, you know what, we're going to name you king. So he became the king of Switzerland. And all this stuff was written like in his diary. He wrote all this before all of this happened. So around this time, man, and that's what's crazy. Around this time, people were making, even nowadays, I mean, what am I saying? But people used to make life decisions based on what the tarot would tell them. People were deciding whether or not they should abandon their families and go on this long expedition to try to support their family based on what tarot said. Based on what...
There are still people who do that.
There's still people that do that now. So
I mean, or they're using mediums and psychics, and they won't do anything without consulting.
Yeah, without consulting their mystics. And
yeah,
there was also a war that almost happened in Sicilia, and this happened over tarot. So when the Catholic Church found that tarot was something that was basically taken away from the church, they banned it. They're like, this is banned, and they actually started rounding up people that would do the tarot, and they started like burning the cards. They started doing all these things. So at the time, the Protestants and the Catholics were still at war, basically. So all these like mystics ended up going to like the Protestant side of this country, and they're held up in this church, in this small church, and then these authority figures come in. They're like, "Hey, you guys have people that are playing, that are doing mysticism. You guys need to turn these guys over." And then the church leaders are like, "We're not doing that." It's like, why? And it's saying, "Well, it's against the church." And it's like, well, what the Pope believes doesn't matter to us. So no, we're not turning them in. It says you have 3 days. If you don't turn these people in, we're gonna go to war. And they're like, all right. So the 3 days pass, and these guys return with an army, and now these Protestants also have an army, and they're all it's a big standoff. Finally, the Catholic Church is like, this isn't worth it. As long as these people don't leave, this city or this area, they'll be fine. So then they leave, and that was an instance where tarot almost caused a war, over cards. And it wasn't over cards. It was, they felt like it was disrespecting the Pope, so they almost
in the Bible though, it's frowned upon to practice anything like that.
In the Old Testament, it talks about so here's what it is. So it also depends on the type of magic that was utilized, because it says soothsayers and all those kind of things. But also, I mean, when you look at King Solomon and all those kind of people, they utilized what was called lots. And lots were like a form of tarot. It was a divination tool. And that's how they decided. I mean, when you look at also Gideon and his army, what did God tell him to do? God told him to go and then play the lots. And then, so I guess it depended on not only the tribe and what you were using it for. It also, like, at the time and the location of who the tribes were because there was also people out there that would utilize human sacrifice for magic. So, anyways, that's a whole different topic. So, anyways, so with tarot, it's just crazy because when you look at the history of tarot, you have kings that would rise and fall, due to tarot. They would people would say is this king? Is he a right king? I don't know. Let's go consult. And then they would do tarot, and then they basically the whole kingdom was surrounding this person playing cards, and the king had to sit there as he's sweating because whatever this lady says, this guy's gonna get beheaded. So it was in her hands.
And anybody could slip in and pay her a small fortune to make it happen.
Yeah, and that was the thing. But again, you also had observers because there was people out. So the way that I look at tarot is almost it's like this big, mystical code. And a person that's a really good tarot reader, he's almost like a code breaker. He's the one that can read the code. So, and a lot of people out there that play tarot, they believe it so much. They put so much into their craft that I don't think they could be paid off.
It's all about your intent too.
Yeah, and
so the story of the guy going in and her drawing the Nine of Swords because she let him shuffle the deck and put his intent into the deck, and then she goes, okay, and starts going out, and she's probably going,
yeah.
You are not who you say you are.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that he wrote in his journal, and the cards saw through my disguise. It's such a great way of writing, just so poetic, So, anyways, nowadays, no matter where you go and people are doing tarot, like you said, people are basing a lot of decisions based on this. And to me, it's if you believe in it enough, there could be something there. You know what I mean? Because
there's not just one interpretation to a card, though.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of interpretations, and man, you can, the cards. It's
Yeah, that's why there's different types of cards.
Right.
I mean, how many cards is there in tarot? Is it 76? You have the
It was 70, 74, 76, something like that.
You have your major.
Well, the major and the minor arcana.
Yeah, major and minor arcana. So, anyways, it's just one of those things where to me it's so fascinating because you have people that are just tremendous at it, and I believe in mysticism. As a skeptic as I am, I believe in certain things of mysticism not just because of my upbringing, but because of what I'm learning and all that kind of stuff. I was watching somebody get a reading, and this person is I want to make a life decision, and I don't know if this is the right one. So this person's you shuffle the deck, and this person shuffled the deck and flipped the cards over, and it's okay, this one shows me that you're looking for a romantic partner. It's yeah, and it says, okay, and you have two choices here, and you're thinking about it. And she's yeah, I don't know who to pick. And it says, okay, this guy here is the one that you're really looking towards. Okay, so let's focus on this card, okay? And she says, yeah. And then she's shuffling the deck, whatever the hell. And she brings up the stuff, and she's okay, this guy is older, he's older than you. He's 10 years older than you, and he has this, he has that, he has kids, but he's not divorced. Has he told you that? She's no. And she's flipping through the cards, and then she's also, he's not planning on getting divorced. And he's also not planning on having children with you because he's actually I don't know how it is that she got all this information. And then she brings up let's look at the next guy, and she's bringing up this guy, he's single, he's closer to your age, and she's yeah, absolutely, and she tells him all these details. She's to me, this is the better pick, but what I look at it is that you're gonna pick the first guy, and then she's yeah, I was going to, and
well, I think she's probably medium.
Yeah, and it's crazy because yeah, you do have people that read the tarot and they're mediums or they're witches, and they have all these because again, it's just a tool. Like it's just some people out there do divination and they do it with rods. Some people do it with chicken bones or animal bones. You know,
Tea leaves.
yeah, tea leaves. I mean, damn. When you look at it, there's so many different tools. So it's the person, it's not necessarily the tool. But to me, tarot is so fascinating because I I like the so my favorite character out of the whole tarot deck is the Fool. You know, the Fool represents innocence, he represents open-mindedness, and when you look at the tarot, when you're looking at what's going on, like it's basically like his journey in life. You know, like
Yeah, it's called the Fool's Journey.
the Fool's journey. One of the, and a lot of people believe that that's probably what inspired Cervantes to write Don Quixote. Is Don Quixote was the innocent fool. You know,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so that's why you have certain cards, like you have, the Fool. The next one in line, I believe, is the High Priestess, and it shows like the Fool. Like sometimes they'll have the Fool like going to this lady, and the High Priestess is like his guide, his spiritual guide, and then from there it's is it the High Priestess or is it the Magician? But basically, it's his journey, and if you look at the cards in order, because the Fool, he's zero. He doesn't have an order, but everybody else just can keep. So you can keep looking at the cards and you kind of see his journey, like the Hanged Man, the Tower, and all these kind of things. And then at the end, I believe the last card in it is the World, and you kind of see like the Fool like complete his journey. So you're looking at things almost through his eyes, but the Fool is you. So yeah, like
The Fool is you.
the Fool is you, but yeah, we also got to understand like the whole concept of the Fool. So in English, the Fool is somebody that's dumb. If you look at somebody that's foolish, he's an idiot. But in the original language, the word Fool literally means innocent, or somebody that's like basically like their journey is beginning. So like we have April Fool's Day. So in places like Spain, they have the same thing, only it's called Dia de los Inocentes, the Day of the Innocent. You know, so it's just like the language thing. So when you look at the Fool and his card, he's holding a white rose, and the white rose symbolizes purity. And why does it symbolize purity? Because back then, when these cards were first drawn, white roses had no value because they had no sell value. So you would get one white rose out of every 100, basically. It's basically what they would say. So what you would do is you would start gathering up your roses. You would get the white rose and you throw it aside, and you keep grabbing the rest of the roses that you can actually sell. The fact that the Fool he's in some cards, he's almost like stepping like on the roses, on the red ones, and it's almost like he's picking this because this is the one that he likes. This is the one that's unique. He's not looking at it through like monetary value. He's not looking. This is what he. So usually the Fool is seen holding the white rose of purity because he himself is innocent and pure. So there was kings out there that saw themselves as the Fool, like I am the Fool, whatever. And then they would bring somebody in, and then they would have somebody shuffle a deck, and depending on the order that the cards would arrive, that's the way that he conducted his kingdom. Okay, I'm supposed to do this. Okay, I'm supposed, and it was just so nuts. Yeah, and it's nuts because to us now, well, to a lot of people now, that's like, why would you do that? That's dumb. But to these people, it meant something. I mean, magic used to have a place in our society that was held. We replace magic with science, but it's basically the same thing. Like, a chemist? What's a chemist? He's an alchemist.
Alchemist.
Yeah, he's an alchemist, and so you look at all these things, and that's the way they conducted their lives, and we look at it and we look down on these people, but we're doing the same thing with things like science. I mean, things that it's basically the same thing, in a way, because a lot of science is theory, but a lot of people just base their life strictly on this. We're gonna lose a lot of people with this. Like, I'm shutting off. But I mean, it's the same thing. What do they say about magic? Magic is a science that hasn't yet been fully discovered. So people base their life, and it shaped history. Like, man, if you look at Abraham Lincoln's career, like how he shaped this, his wife was huge in the mysticism.
Yeah, she was huge into the occult.
Yeah, and she would invite like tarot readers, and Abraham Lincoln was a guy that even though he he didn't believe in it. He loved his wife so much that he was like, okay, this is what you think I should do because of it. Fine, I'll do this. So and a
Right.
lot of the decisions that he made, later in his career was due to what his wife, Mary Todd, would tell him, like, hey, this is what my fortune teller said. So if you look at what history would be without that concept of mysticism and tarot and all that kind of stuff, where would the United States be? Just think about that. It's like how many decisions were made that shaped, history.
Okay. Yeah. That makes me start thinking.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do. We want to get our audience
I'm
thinking.
think about also like the Reagans. Nancy Reagan was incredibly into mysticism and past life regression, and she consulted her astrologist almost on a daily basis. And she would, she would tell Ronald not to ride his horses that day or whatever, because that's what, she was told. So
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, she was always trying to keep him safe.
Yeah, and
So
It's
and
just
look at
it's just
well, my
fascinating.
mom
All
was
these
not into tarot, but I mean, she wasn't. She didn't do much tarot, but still, she was a psychic, and we based a lot of our living and growing up, and a lot of our day to day lives based on what she would say, like don't do this or don't do that, or if you have the choice, turn left, not right. I mean, it was just
yeah, we definitely have to do an episode on just your mom and her adventures because I felt like there's there. But yeah, it again, like we in a way we still kind of do that. Like a lot of people, the first thing they do is they wake up and they look at the weather, they look at all these things, and they look at what's going on the internet before they start their day, and that used to be the routine of a lot of people. They used to wake up and then they used to either have somebody just come over before they do anything. They would have some because every town, especially in Europe, every town had that person. Every town had the wise person. They had the what would you call it? The witch, the sword, whatever you want to call them, the seer. They're like, what should we do? What should we plant? What should we do? And then this person would tell, not just with tarot, but like with different divination tools. Like I believe in places like Ireland, they used to have, they used to use rods, like almost like divination rods in a way to like answer certain questions. Are you okay?
I just heard a noise, and so did Banshee, and she jumped.
But
oh.
But
that was weird.
Gee, but they would use things like rods, like the same way that some people answer the way some people use rods for paranormal investigating. Like move the rods for or whatever it is. And then these people do the same thing. Should I do this? And then the rods would close or they would open, and that's how people would get their answer, and that's how they lived their life, and that's what brought them comfort. That was the culture. And looking around now, it kind of makes me sad that we lost that, or if you're a person that still like believes in that stuff, people treat you like you're weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I know I'm weird.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. Yeah. So, what did somebody say? I read a meme today, and it makes a lot of sense, and I shared it, and it was like, something about your opinion of me. If you don't like me, let me look at my paycheck and see if it has changed based on your opinion of me.
Yeah.
So you have to, and the meaning behind that is, who cares? Be yourself. Be your true self, whatever that is. So
yeah, and that's something that is cool. Is that could you imagine if you meet somebody and you're like, let me take you to a tarot reader. And when they're like asking you questions, kind of like the same thing with like the general, like I'm a merchant, and it's like, no, you're not. And they're like, could you imagine if you could do that to somebody, like somebody's entering your life, and let's just play the tarot cards and see what you are. It's
yeah, that makes me think that a person was more of a medium than a tarot. I mean, they were using tarot,
yeah,
but using their medium skills, because I think it might have been harder to be a medium. And so you could use the cards but you could relay all the information you got as a medium through the cards. You know
Yeah.
what I'm
No,
saying?
yeah. At that point, it just becomes a tool to aid you because you're not just using the cards; you're using
Yeah,
yourself.
because maybe the witch was more frowned upon, the medium was more frowned upon. So by using a card where you're laying your cards on the table, you could you because people didn't know, you could interpret the cards, and then you could all this knowledge that you have of this person, you can blather out
Yeah,
without being a freak because you were a
because you're a
medium
medium.
or a psychic.
I wonder how many
Well,
of them.
also more dangerous to be a witch
Yeah.
slash medium back then too. But if somebody just came in, they're like, "Oh, we're just playing cards,"
Yeah,
then
because
they
it
could
was
probably it's more socially acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
see that's damn. That's a deep. I wonder how many like tarot readers out there weren't like really looking at the cards if they were just using their ability. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I bet a great many of them, they would say, "Oh, this is the Six of Cups, and this means this." And who knew? Who knew? They're just saying, "Well, this is saying that you're coming to a fork in the road, and you need to turn left." And you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
they already had that information on this person when the person sat down.
Because yeah, a lot of
So
people have different interpretations of what certain cards mean. I mean, there's books out there that can help you, but in the end, like who knows? You know?
right, and I've gone to quite a number of tarot card readers, and some of them don't click with me, and some of them do, but I don't know why I put more stock into runes. I used the runes quite frequently for a long time. It's been the last couple of years I kind of put them aside, just life. But um, it was pretty interesting when I was using the runes. Every morning I'd get up and I'd look at a rune and ask the question for the day and use the rune to get to kind of
Yeah.
guide me, and then that rune would be on my mind all day. And so, is it power of um, persuasion, because I know what that rune meant. So is that supposed to guide me that direction? So when I was making my decisions that day, I was going with that direction.
Yeah, it's man, that's such a you know what? Like we need to revisit this topic with Messy Jessie on here
Mm-hmm.
because she's pretty gifted in that area, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
man, and it's you know it would be nice to be able to at least for 24 hours to be like in a bulletproof bubble and travel back in time where you can just observe and just kind of like watch how a lot of things played out based on this kind of stuff. Like it'd be nice to like go to places like Romania and watch the gypsies, you know, and how
Yes.
a lot of even the czars of Russia would go in disguise to these to make decisions and just kind of like watch these people and just I don't know, like I look at it and it's like so romantic to me because tarot was something that I knew about, but I like was never. But then I started like looking into the meaning of a lot of things, and I'm like, you know what? Like this is something that I would like to really learn. You know, just kind of, you know what I mean? Because it's interesting. Oh,
That'd be
Well,
so
I'm
fun to travel back into like old timey England, like 1800s, and go attend a séance
oh,
and watch that
it,
all
it
go
it would
down.
be kind of
Victorian
cool, but
England.
nobody bathed back then, and that's what I keep thinking about every time I think about it, is how smelly everybody was.
You
So
just ruined it.
um I can't, I'm sorry, I go there, my mind goes there. But I think it would be cool to travel back. I just think I'm really proud of you, Decon, for actually, because you weren't interested in tarot at all. Like you didn't put any stock to it at all.
no, I thought it
And then you journeyed with it a little bit, and I thought that was really interesting that you've come like and done a 180, and now you're thinking, wow, this is pretty interesting. So
I'll be honest, I thought it was pretty dumb,
mhm.
and
Yep.
I knew that.
It's
I
just
remember
cards.
those conversations.
Yeah,
So I think, like you said, there's a lot of tools that we can use to help us. I think a lot we most of the time already know what the correct answer is and the correct decision and the way we should go. But sometimes you struggle. You get to places in life where you're struggling, like with the decision or wrestling with, should I go A or should I go B? Should I go C? and it's tough. And if those tools help you, that's great. But I would hesitate to tell people to use them for everything. You know internally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where most of your decisions come from. Don't rely on them for every single thing.
Yeah, a lot of it, it's just like confirmation bias, Like,
Mhm.
It's you do one reading one day and it all pans out, and you're like, huh, there might be something to this. So the next day you do a reading and it happens again. You're like, okay. And then you start getting accustomed to it, using it
yeah,
every single day for every little thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I always hesitate with doing anything like that. Like that's why I use a pendulum too when I'm doing
yeah,
things, when I'm communicating, right? And you have to calibrate it every time you use it because your body changes a little bit every single day into what your yes or your no will look like. But it's kind of interesting if you're asking yourself questions, it it definitely swinging one way or the other based on your yes or your no that day. It changes every day. It can change every day. But I mean the swing of the pendulum based on
yeah,
yes and no can change. But your body knows. You know
yeah,
most of the time
yeah,
what decisions you need to make and how to make them.
yeah. And with the pendulum, I imagine that if you're like, oh man, I gotta get this done, but I don't want to, and it's like, well, then you ask the pendulum, and your body just tenses up just enough because of the end. Then you're like, there's that answer.
I think we tend to I think as people, we tend to think like, oh man, I'm really bad at making decisions, and I need help. Or I had a friend just recently say, just a few days ago, I overthink things too much. I said no. I said you need to maybe say, I really think things through. She
Yeah,
analyzes things. I said, you keep putting yourself into a negative spin when you do that. Instead, think, well, I'm really good at thinking things through. I've thought this through. Let me move on to the next, instead of just grinding through the same topic over and over.
yeah,
You know, yeah, I think it's easy for us to get in the mindset. Well, God, I just can't make a decision on this. Yeah, you can. You can.
yeah.
And we're really good at making decisions every single day.
We just need that
Most of us.
little extra push or little extra
Yeah.
confirmation.
That's why I think the card's fascinating. I think people who are using them though are probably more mediums than not.
And they don't. You think they just don't know?
No, I think they
You
know.
think they know? They're just like using it. It's
Mhm,
a prop, right? You just use it as a prop.
mhm.
Okay.
I think in most cases.
Yeah, it's kind of like a comic book of sorts. They can already see it in their head, so they deal it out and they have pictures and they tell a story with it
Yeah,
to the other person.
and I think that's why there's so many different styles because a lot of people when they look at things like tarot, they think that it's just like, all right, let's do the four cards and flip them. That's why a lot of people have different styles. They have their own technique. Like we're gonna put them in the shape of
Mhm.
this. We're gonna do it this way. We're gonna do blah blah blah, and it's because like they already know, like they're getting an idea in their head, and this is just how they put their thoughts into like something physical. If that makes any sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met a tarot card reader that wasn't a medium personally. And I know almost every medium I know works with tarot cards.
Hmm.
So I don't think I think if you go to a tarot card who has no mediumship ability, I don't think they're going to be able to. I think they're just going to go read from like they're just going to have memorized a book,
Yeah.
tell you what. Oh, this is what this means, and I don't. I would it would be a really interesting poll to do, like on our paranormal page on Facebook with our followers to do like, are you a medium and do you use tarot? Um, Develop a poll and have those people answer those questions. But the problem is you get people who lie and they just
Yeah.
fill out the poll. Yeah, but it would be really interesting to poll
That's
people who are doing tarot. I bet they're all mediums.
hmm. Yeah, that'd be an interesting experiment. Um, damn, that's a lot to think about. Man, we definitely should revisit this with Messy Jessie on and
We do.
like
And she had some really interesting actual stories that she dug up of people using tarot on different cases,
Oh
like
yeah.
missing person cases and murder cases and stuff like that. So I think would be really interesting for us to revisit this. Hopefully next week she can make it. So, yeah,
revisit it. Just like the what is the Manson murders? What was the name of that lady? Tate?
Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate.
Yeah.
So a friend of hers went to a tarot read, and then she pulled these cards and like something bad's gonna happen. Like I had
I do remember
you
that.
remember that? And then it like basically
I do remember
yeah,
it.
it was just like crazy and then it happened. I think like a couple days later. Like she's like, don't go home, don't stay here instead. And then she like didn't listen, and then oh, that's crazy. Anyways, guys, this was a interesting episode. We're gonna have a part 2. There's gonna be more. Gonna have somebody that actually is gifted in this art, so it'll be great. So you guys like and share this podcast, this channel. Talk to people about it. Patreon. Sign up for the Patreon. We got a lot of stuff on that Patreon now, so it's crazy.
Well, we're getting there.
Yeah,
Every week we're doing at least one upload a week.
yeah. So
At least. And stuff you won't find here.
yep. So head on over to that. You'll get your money's worth. You share it. It's gonna be great. Anything else? I just like and subscribe. If you like this kind of stuff, just hit subscribe, hit like.
Oh, and we have t-shirts.
Yes.
T-shirts for sale.
Yep.
The artwork is amazing. It's all decon
Well,
artwork.
no, it's just some idiot.
Oh,
I had a guy that does
Good
tarot do
stuff.
the art. And I'm like, hey man, can you draw me something? Anyways,
Hey, our first Patreon subscriber got a free t-shirt. What can I say?
yeah,
And that person let me pick the art, and I was pretty pleased to do it. So
yeah, it's pretty. That's cool stuff. So guys, check out the art. It's great stuff. They're not only shirts, but they're like hats, they're mugs, anything you guys want. And I'll be doing some more. I've been kind of taking a hiatus from that, but I'll be back, and then we'll just do a lot more stuff. So you guys like and subscribe. Thank you guys for being on the show. And remember, guys, to always look both ways, especially if you find yourself on Nightmare Road.